Well, hello, everybody. Thank y'all for being here. I was afraid I'd be talking to myself. I did not realize I had it set for 9 o'clock tonight. Uh, but I want to go ahead and do this and get this done. But thank y'all so much for coming in, being with me. Hello, TJ, my friend. Hey, Ginger girl. I'm too honest for this. Thank you. And let's see. Whoa. Hey, YouTuber. I love your flower. Hi, Miss Sue. How are you? JH. Aloha, my friend. Thank y'all for being here. I almost talked myself out of coming on tonight. It's been a really rough day for me today. I think I've told y'all before, just with my son, I have those days. And today was one of those bad days where I just miss him more than I can hardly breathe. But I want to do this and I wanted to come on here, and you guys always make me feel better, but I am not going to cam up tonight. Um, my nose is red, my eyes are puffy. But I do thank y'all for being here. It means more than you'll ever know, really. Oh, it's all good, guys. I'll make it through. It's just one of those days. I woke up and I swear I would swore upon the Bible I could smell him, and it just kind of went downhill from there. It's just a cycle, I guess. I don't know if it'll ever go away or not, but it's still here with me. Hey, James and Cheryl, Miss Kathy, thank y'all for coming in. I am so sorry, guys, that I had it set for 9 o'clock. I don't know why I had it set for so late. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm too honest. It's just crazy, isn't it? Just a smell can just bring back the sadness so quick. Yeah, he could have been here with me. Just, I don't know. It's hard to explain. So, hi, Noni. Thank you for being here. I hope everybody's doing well today. It is Friday. Hi, Cheryl. Oh, goodness. I think I got everybody. Um, yes. And today, little Quentin got his justice, y'all. Bless his little heart. But his justice, it's done. And that was emotional too. And probably already emotional, so that just kind of made it worse. But yeah, hey BJ Bob. Thanks for being here. Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Um so I know I had seen at one time the behavior panel had done another live with the Proudfoots, but what what I was looking for it, I saw with Chris McDonough the behavior panel, and guys, they did the same exact interview and went over it, and it really surprised me how, when you're going off of behavior, you look at everything one way. But when you're going at it as a detective, it's a whole different story. And I thought you guys would enjoy hearing the difference between the two. So that's what we're going to do tonight. But anyways, let me get this ready to go. I was going to go on my new laptop, but it's doing an update still. When I turned it on, it started update. So, okay, so let's get started. Oh, it does, Miss Kathy. It really does. Just hit you out of the blue. A dead squirrel. Sounds like my neighbor when my kids were little, and the little neighbor boy, he was way younger than them, but he would just come over with random dead animals and walk in the house to show me. Look, it's a dead bird. I'm like, get it outside. My daughter would find injured animals, whether it was a neighbor's cat, whether it was a squirrel that a little kitten got to, whatever. She'd bring him home because she wanted to doctor him up. I just knew she was going to end up being a vet, but she wasn't. She didn't never want to. But when she was little, we doctored up the whole neighborhood's pets. Okay, guys. Now it's a pretty long one. We may have to do a 2-part on this, but yeah. Really? She uses the fur and bones to make jewelry. Oh. Well, that's different. Okay. Hello, Teresa. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate you. I really appreciate you all being here. I apologize for the 9 o'clock that I had set. I don't know why. I don't even realize I did that until I got ready to go live. And I'm like, wait a minute. What is the deal? And I looked and I had 9 o'clock tonight. I would have talked myself out of it by then. Okay, I'm going to put up a banner. So we want to do this all correctly. We're going to do that. I'm going to play some soft music in the background. All credit goes to Chris McDonough and the Deceptive. There we go. Okay. Let's get this going. And we'll get busy here. I hope y'all enjoy this. It is really interesting. And it's way different than what we just listened to, guys. Here we go.
A retired homicide detective. I've interviewed thousands of people, from serial killers to ministers. Welcome to the interview room. An amazing Welcome to the interview room, everybody. What an amazing Sunday this is going to be. We are so excited that each and every one of you are here. As you can tell, I have a very special guest, my dear friend and colleague, Steve Johnson, and we want to thank each and every one of you this evening, our subscribers, our Patreon members, and of course, we have the best mods here on YouTube, Teresa M, Maui Girl, Mimi J2, and our newest amazing team member, Laura Waddy. Now, also, I just want to, before we kick this thing off, I want to raise a little awareness as to the importance of what we're doing tomorrow in this country. It is Memorial Day.
Hey guys, I'm going to go.
This is a time for each and every one of us to reflect on approximately 1.
No, I've worked with several that have served, and my deepest respect.
All respects.
Truth2lies.com. Truth2lies.com. And so with that, Steve, I know I called you yesterday, literally full transparency here for everybody. He's been so busy. And I told him, I said, hey, have you heard about this Sebastian Rogers case? And he said, yeah, kind of, but I really haven't had time to dive into it. And I said, perfect. You would be the perfect guy tonight to take a look at this case. I have purposely, laid low. I've made a couple of comments on the lab over at Josh's channel with Dr. Picotto. But I have not shown Steve this video. I sent him the links last night, and we both got permission from our wives to talk about it tonight. So I cannot wait to hear his analysis of what's going on in his mind about what's going on potentially in their mind. And we're going to talk specifically about the parents' first interview on the news. There are so many things going on in this case. He's been missing, obviously, since the 26th of February, so we're coming up on 3 months. My personal opinion, the authorities are working overtime on this, and as a result of that, I'm sure there's a lot of information behind the scenes. But I told Steve just before we went up here, I have the sinking feeling this is a Summer Wells 2.0, which has caused a lot of emotion out there. We're coming up on her anniversary soon. So Sebastian's a 15-year-old autistic boy. If you're not familiar with this case, which I'm going to be surprised if you aren't. However, Sebastian's a 15-year-old autistic boy from Henderson, Tennessee. He was last seen by his biological mother, Katie Proudfoot, and stepfather, Chris Proudfoot, before going to bed. Katie said she heard a thud from her son's room around 10 p.m., and she told him to go to sleep. She told the police the next morning she went to wake her son up, but found he was not in his bed. After searching the house, she called the police. That's kind of been backwards on a couple of statements. But Sebastian had been seen early in the day in Henderson wearing a black sweatshirt, black sweatpants, and glasses. The authorities have been working on this nonstop. They started an extensive search, including canine officers, horseback, drones, and helicopters. And they also drained a pond near his home, but nothing was found. Search dogs have not picked up a scent for Sebastian, according to some of the reports. And this was the most interesting one. Authorities searched a landfill in Kentucky where the family's trash had been taken, but nothing turned up. So on March 4th, the teen's mom and stepfather gave an interview to TV News approximately 8 days after Sebastian's disappearance. And that news outlet footage is what we're going to analyze tonight. So it appears to show some activity around 3 a.m, according to some reports, but those lights there were some lights behind the house, flashlights or something, but those have been attributed to potentially a trash truck in the neighborhood right behind the house as he was coming through and picking up items. But the authorities have not come out with information additionally about those lights, but they're saying they've taken it off the table. What they haven't taken off the table is that, quote, no one has been cleared. Not cleared anyone, quote unquote. So the authorities are working hard. TBI, Secret Service, a variety of resources have been put into this. And I have to say, it sounds like summer 2.0. So that's the gist of it. Thoughts, opening thoughts, Steve, before we kick off into this thing?
I think your analogy to Summer Wells is accurate. You and I did, 3 or 4 videos on Summer Wells, and those are worth going back and looking at later. But that's exactly what it reminded me of, and there's nuances within this interview that are very similar to some of the things that we saw in the Summer Wells case. So I think you're spot on, and interestingly, Summer Wells still has not been found, and I hope that Sebastian is, of course, but I love exploring the very first interview that anyone does. Those interviews, like the one we're going to watch tonight, we're going to analyze tonight, those are the interviews that are uncontaminated. In other words, the parents have not had time to react to things that other people are interjecting regarding the investigation. I mean, they are a little bit, but this is their first interview. Actually, the very first one would be the 911 call, and then this second one. So we're gonna get some good analysis out of this interview, and my goal, and what I do in my space here is that my goal is to get inside their head and understand at a deep level what is the information. When you read in my bio about the information that's hiding in plain sight, that latent content. It's like latent fingerprints. They're there, but you can't see them until you apply the material, the tools, whatever it is, to make those fingerprints come to life, and then you see them and you can lift them and you can use them. We do the same thing with the statement. So we're not really investigating the person. We are investigating the words that they use, which is going to reveal what's going on inside their brain, which is what we want. They have the information we want, and so we want to get inside their head to extract it, and they do that with their words. It's the best tool I ever learned. It's in now my 34th year and working with law enforcement investigators. I still feel it is the most effective tool that I could have ever learned to solve cases. And so I'm excited to dive into this one.
Awesome. So if you were, let's say an agency called you in, walk people through how that happens. What takes place when an agency says, hey, we've got a statement, Steve. Can you walk us through this? Tell us what you think.
Yeah. And yeah, I've worked on several cases for agencies, cold cases and current cases. And when the agency calls me, they can get a hold of me through my website. I'm not hard to find, and so when the agency gets a hold of me, typically it's either a 911 call they want analyzed, or actually quite often it's an interview. And I've done this for police investigators. I've done it for prosecutors, for defense attorneys. I've civil attorneys, corporate. We use this also in the hiring process to hire the right person. And so they, depending on the job that's being applied for, we want a certain type of individual. And so what we'll do is we'll in the hiring process, I'll look at the application that I help them write, and then we get the application back. I'll look over that. For police agencies, I'll ask
Hey guys,
for
I'm going to
typically
skip
if it's
to the
available,
video.
the audio or video of the interview or the 911 call, and I'll transcribe that and really pick it apart. Very similar to what we're going to do here, but in more detail. Obviously, we only have so much time tonight, so
we'll start.
First, just express, I can't even imagine as a parent what you two are going through. How would you describe the situation right now? How are you coping?
We're on a constant roller coaster ride of helpless and hopeless and many other emotions all in one, and it's a never-ending roller coaster. It doesn't stop. It won't stop until he walks through the door.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
let's hold it right there, Chris. Okay, so a couple things. First thing is that stepdad, his name is Chris as well. So stepdad Chris, he says, well, first of all, I got to know that mom did not answer, and I'm wanting to hear certain things from mom as a biological mother. I want to hear right away her expression of concern about her son and what he is experiencing at this time. He's been missing for 8 days. And I know that the reporter, she targeted, that question to what they have been feeling, but the feeling of any parent, the grief over their missing child is going to override anything that they may be experiencing themselves. That feeling of what is Sebastian going through? What is he experiencing? Did he find some shoes? Is he getting fed? Is he staying warm at night? Is he a myriad of things? Did he find someone to take care of him? Is he scared? Is he okay? And just a myriad of things. And that would override everything else. And so I'm wanting to hear that from mom right away, but she couldn't come up with anything. And I've seen that in other cases where and I should say cases where the parents actually had some guilty knowledge of the disappearance of their child. And when they don't come up with it right away, it's almost as if they were asked something that they weren't expected to be asked. And then because lots of times parents will go into once they're asked questions, they have a narrative, and that's what they think is just enough. Whatever's in their head, they think it's enough to suffice the questions that they will be asked. And if they're asked a question that doesn't quite fall in line, they're kind of at a loss of what to say. And so I'm wanting to hear Mom express things about Sebastian, and she couldn't do it. What she did say is, I wouldn't wish this on anyone. Chris, that refers to what she's going through, not what Sebastian is going through. And that's the thing that really caught my attention, is that she has put the focus on herself rather than her 15-year-old son. And he's autistic and he has special needs, and I just don't, that just was abrasive to me. It struck me as not what I expected to hear from biological Mom.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
No, you're on a roll. I'm listening.
Well, if you have something to say about that, because I'm going to go back to what stepdad Chris said.
Yeah, no, and the rocking, that sometimes is a stress relief. Mm-hmm. Sometimes for people, they're releasing that tension and that energy, because to Steve's point, they may have something going on that we don't know. And by the way, just for the record, in the beginning of this, everybody is innocent until proven guilty. We're not here to say, they're innocent or they're guilty. That's not what we're doing. We're analyzing from a professional perspective, where both of us have testified in court as in our field. Steve is an expert in analyzing this statement analysis and identifying deception. It is much different in a criminal case than it is in the civilian court for a civil case, because in a criminal case, you have jeopardy and you have people that could lose their liberty. So they have a lot more to lose than just their house or their money. So this is a different type of analysis that we're looking at. So I don't have any other thing, to dovetail into what you've already said so far, Steve.
Okay. Going back to the first thing that Chris said, he said, we're on a constant roller coaster of helpless and hopeless. Now, here's the thing about this, and some people, I hope you can see what I'm going to say here, where I'm going with this. That is a portrayal of emotion such as you would read in a novel. It is something that, in other words, something that I don't expect to come from a de facto innocent parent. It is something that would be said to cover, because to cover up some guilty knowledge, let's say. It is something that appeals to the emotion of the listener, of the interviewer, of everyone out there listening to the news. Chris is appealing to that emotion, and I almost feel bad calling him Chris, because I like you so much, and I'm saying Chris, and I'm referring to this guy here. So
call me Mac.
Okay.
And we'll differentiate the two of them about that. No.
So the important thing is that the first thing that he went to was helpless and hopeless, and a de facto innocent person is going to have hope. They are going to hold out for hope. I know of cases where a child disappeared and the parents held out for hope that child is going to return for over 20 years. And even when investigators finally discovered that the child had been murdered, the parents refused to let that into their vocabulary and declare the child deceased. For 20 years, they referred to him in the present tense and as alive and going to come back. And my point is that it's very difficult for them to let go. Now, this is a stepdad. It's easier for him to let go. for sure. And men in general can also let go easier than biological mothers can. But mom didn't answer, and so he went to helpless and hopeless. And that is not only an appeal for listeners to believe him, but it is an indication that there is no hope in his mind that Sebastian is coming back, and they're helpless. And in my mind, I'm thinking, are you kidding me? You're talking to the news right now. You should be portraying this. You should be so happy that we're on the news, and hey, everybody, we're getting the word out. Here's what he was wearing, and let's go out and find him. And it would be like that. I would be very hopeful at that point that I'm getting it way out there to everyone. Now,
isn't that interesting? This is a whole different opinion set right here that we're listening to. They pretty much are hopeless. They know. It's so obvious, and in my opinion, they know it's hopeless. Yeah, the other two were looking at just a behavior side. These two are looking at it criminally. And so that's making such a huge difference here. Huge difference. Because these two guys right now are seeing what we've been seeing all along.
We learned that this interview came 8 days into the disappearance, and I'm wondering, what is the holdup? Why hasn't this happened before? And it's my understanding that the parents wouldn't do an interview. Is that correct? To your knowledge?
I do not know that, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I won't touch on that then, but I would like to see the parents right away coming out and saying, hey, our child is missing, and this is who he is, and let's get the information out. But that didn't happen, and instead we have this portrayal of helpless and hopeless, and mom not telling us the things that a de facto innocent biological mother should be telling us about the concern over her son. Instead, she's focusing on herself. So that's what we got.
I love it.
So let's. Yeah.
And I guess we can call him CP.
CP. All right. Good deal.
And that way, folks don't get my name and his name mixed up.
Good. Thank you for that.
Which is the same name. And that was a suggestion from the chat. All right. You want me to keep moving, brother?
Let's go. Yeah.
All right. Here we go.
Not any.
I know we're about keeping hope alive. I'm sure that's in there somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna come home.
He's going to walk through that door. And the street will be flooded again with family and relatives all waiting to hug and love him. And
That boy's gonna have more friends than he knows what to do with when he comes home.
So
Hold up right there before we get into the next part. It's interesting that interviewer, she's the one that she sensed that something was wrong, you can tell, and she introduced, well, how about keeping hope alive? I'm sure that's in there somewhere, isn't it? And she wants to hear that. She's, as an interviewer, as working for the news, I'm sure she's interviewed a lot of different people and watched a lot of interviews, and she knows what comes out of the mouth of a parent whose child is missing. She's wanting to hear certain things, and she didn't hear it, and so I'm sure she's helping him out here, and it couldn't come out. Mom couldn't get it out of her mouth. Again, why aren't we hearing that type of language out of her mouth? It's void. She's void of it. Yet at different times, we're going to see during this interview that she's very teary-eyed and she's sad, and and I believe that she is. I believe that they're real tears. Chris, you and I have both seen fake tears in interviews many times, and the fake emotion and whatnot. I think the mom is sad here. It doesn't speak to being sad. Doesn't speak to innocence or guilt. It's just she is sad at the situation. But if she really was concerned about Sebastian, those words about him would be coming out. She wouldn't be focused on herself. And so this indicates to me that she is more in a mode of self-preservation than anything. So I'm going to see how she does throughout the rest of the interview. And hopefully, I want to hear it change. I don't want to see at the end that she's went through this whole thing in self-preservation mode. I would like to see it change to where she's expressing more concern about Sebastian.
Is that better,
Okay,
Mama
so I'm
Bear?
going to back up just for a second so that the audience can hear those points that you just made. And I agree with them, agree with you 1,000%. And that sadness also could be, it doesn't necessarily mean, it's sadness towards the totality of the circumstances. It could be sadness that, if there's some type of jeopardy there, that this is kind of a release of that stress. And that's where also the soothing of, the rocking back and forth comes into this as well. So I'm going to back up just for a second, listen to how this unfolded.
With family and relatives all waiting to hug and
Mama Bear, is that better for you? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to have the music up so loud. I didn't realize it was up that loud. Oh, well, welcome, Polly. Welcome. Okay, I hope the music's better for everybody. Sorry if I blew out your eardrums. That was not my intention. Here we go. Let's get...
love him, and
That boy's gonna have more.
Now, the interesting part there is he keeps shaking his head no, yet he's talking about all the family and relatives coming in to hug him and stuff. Any thoughts on that, Steve?
Yeah, it's an indication that in his mind he knows that that's not going to happen, and the brain is so powerful, and what the brain knows is typically comes out physiologically and verbally, linguistically. What the brain knows reveals itself, and that's why the polygraph works, the voice stress analyzer works, and why statement analysis works so well if you're skilled at it. And so he's saying one thing, but that head nod is giving us a different answer that it's really not going to happen.
Yeah, and if we go back, if anybody wants to see, we did an analysis on in Summer Wells' case. You can see it in the playlist early on. Steve caught so many things in that situation, and it was indicative of the father talking on the news, going like this. Going like this. All right. So that good catch. Hang on.
he's gonna walk through that door. And the street will be flooded again with family and relatives all waiting to hug and love him. And
That boy's gonna have more friends than he knows what to do with when he comes home.
So here we are, 8 days now searching for him. Walk us through that Sunday night that he went missing. So walk us through, we've got so many people who really want to know, okay, how did this happen? So kind of just walk us through that night.
I get the sense that she's really concerned about that question. I mean,
yeah. I love those questions, and for your viewers, if they don't know, that's one of the questions that you and I would ask in an investigation, especially with a missing person or a homicide. Hey, describe your last moments with your loved one. Describe that last day with Sebastian. And if if there was something amiss, if something bad happened, it's going to make them very, very nervous, as you know. So it's interesting to see now with that question and where it focused her brain, what she says here.
So many people who really want to know, okay, how did this happen? So kind of just walk us through that night.
We were out and about that day. We were having a really good weekend. We got home. Everything was pretty normal. He was playing in his room. When I told him to go to bed, he did. He said, "Good night, Mom, I love you." Said goodnight to his puppies. A little bit later, I wound up going to bed, and when I woke him up for school, he wasn't there.
All right. So there's actually a lot in that. She doesn't realize she actually skipped over. I mean, she described that day and evening very succinctly, but skipping over a lot of information.
We've been saying that all along, haven't we? That we have all kinds of details for the whole day, that day, the day before. But once they get home from Texas Roadhouse, there are no details. And it amazes me how Steve Johnson here, it doesn't take him long to catch just half a sentence and he's already seeing red flags.
What they did that day, other conversations, she didn't say a whole lot, but from in my perspective, what she did say was actually pretty revealing. So the first thing that she said was, one of the first things was that that day was pretty normal. Now, whenever I hear somebody refer to the day as being pretty normal, I'm on alert right away for it not being a normal day. I hear this most of the time when I hear the portrayal of normalcy, it has turned out to be anything but the norm. And so I'm on high alert now. Why would she say this? And I want to hear other things about from an experiential language from her. We did this. We went there. I tried to get him to wear his new shirt. He didn't want to. He said, "Mom, I'm going to wear this one instead." You know, little things, little nuances about the day. But we didn't hear those things. She skipped over a lot of those things, which is more times than not, when somebody portrays the day as normal, it's a way of saying, "Hey, you should believe me that it was a normal day and not ask me any details about the day. Just accept that it was a good day. It was a normal day." Or they will say some things that, and not in this particular case, but sometimes they'll portray it as normal, saying something in present tense, indicating this is what we always do on our normal day, and it allows them to not say what actually happened that day in a past tense. And so it's kind of two birds of the same feather here. She's telling us right away, normal day, but I don't hear the language of this is what we did, experiential language. So she went to, I told it when I told him to go to bed, he did, and she kind of laughed. And what is that? It's a reference to him not going to bed, times that he hasn't gone to bed. And so she's kind of laughing at it like, for once he did, or this time he did. And the problem I have with it is that it is a portrayal or a reference to something negative that Sebastian could have done. So I'm now on alert, and what she says next kind of seals the deal for me. And I don't like what I'm hearing here, because she says, he said, "I love you, Mom," and he went to bed. Now, saying I love you is something that we all do. I'll call my wife, I'll talk to her on the phone, I'll say, "I love you, babe." When I'm leaving, I'll say, "Hey, I'm running out, I'll be back soon, love you." My daughters are here. When they leave, we're going somewhere, "All right, love you." We say I love you a lot, but we don't have the need to tell the people that, "Hey, by the way, I told my wife I loved her," for a day. We just say, "Oh, I had dinner with the family, and oh, my wife and I went here or there, or drop my wife off at the airport," whatever it is. And these situations are situations where we would say, "I love you," but it's the need here that she has to tell the world that, "Hey, my son told me he loved me." So that, on top of it's a normal day and this little hint at a negative reference that sometimes Sebastian doesn't cooperate with me, doesn't do what I tell him to do, a little laugh about it, I'm now alarmed, because more times than not, when I hear this "I love you" come out of their mouth, I know that it is often a time when, if a crime has been committed, that is typically the time that the crime was committed. This is particularly true in domestic situations such as this, domestic homicides, other situations similar to this. So I'm always on alert when I hear that the portrayal of "I love you." And the other thing is that what that does is, what she's saying is, I'm such a good mother that my son told me that he loves me. And that even elevates this even more, that why the need to portray yourself as a good mom? That is something in the analysis field that we really take note of, that when there's a portrayal of being a good mom, and there are many cases. It's in the Summer Wells case, there's numerous missing person and domestic homicide type cases. We see this, where there's a portrayal of being a good dad, a good mom, a good guy. And it's typically that portrayal comes around the time that if a crime was committed, the crime occurred, or right after, because they're rehabbing themselves now, linguistically, psychologically. They feel the need to rehab themselves, to make themselves look better, to feel better about the situation. And so for me, it's a pretty good indication that something nefarious, something didn't go quite right that night. And so for me, it's if something occurred, it was that night, not the next morning. So yeah, I'm concerned now at this point already.
So, and everybody understands what Steve's doing here is he's kind of, this is, he's not dove into this case until tonight. I mean, this is literally the first time. So it's almost as if I wanted to present it to him in this video, just fresh off the boat, for lack of a better term. And that is such a solid point about a domestic situation for our viewers to understand. When you have the victim looking at the person potentially doing something to them, they go, "But I love you." Hey, and yet they're being abused or whatever the situation is. And that's the point that Steve's making here when he heard that. And I missed it until you just pointed it out, that is such a powerful statement in context to the experience level potentially of a domestic situation going sideways. So I'm going to keep moving. Do you want me to keep moving?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
So in your mind, that's usually around what time? When do you normally wake up? Around 6 o'clock?
6.
So were you instantly thinking something's wrong, or were you like, he may just...
Oh, one other thing I have to say about that last segment, and Mally picked it up as well, and I had her statement up there, but when I woke him up for school, he wasn't there.
Yeah.
That statement, when I woke him up for school, he wasn't there. Well, what do you mean? Was he woken up? Was he not woken up? Where's that going? What's your thoughts on that, Steve?
Yeah, that's definitely something that it's incongruent, those two things. When I woke him up and he wasn't there, well, you can't wake him up if he's not there. So for me, that is something that's not experiential. It's something that what happens in the brain when there's any type of deception, which if it's not experiential, then you have a form of deception because she's portraying it as experiential, as something that actually happened. But what will occur in the brain is that there's so much stress there in the brain from the deception. The brain knows what actually occurred and didn't occur. And if she's now going to try to force the opposite out of her mouth, the brain is like, hey, we know this didn't happen. And it creates this stress in the brain. It transcends the body physiologically. And what happens is linguistically, we will often hear things like this that it will sound confusing. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't flow right. It will be incongruent like her words are. And when I hear things like that, I'm thinking, wow, this is what's going on the heels of what we just talked about. And now I'm seeing this is called carryover stress. And in voice stress analysis, we would have carryover stress. She's still stressed about what she experienced that night. She's still having to answer questions about that. So she's still feeling that. And so it's coming out now, incongruent, confusion in the language, incongruency. It's classic.
Must be, are you in the shower?
I took a second and walked through the house looking for him in case he'd gotten up and was trying to get breakfast or something, because he did that sometimes. About 3 minutes in, give or take, I was on the phone with my husband. I said, I can't find him. He said, what do you mean you can't find him? I said, he's not in the house.
And so at that point, is that when you call 911, or what's going through your mind?
While we were on the phone.
Let's stop there, Chris. Before CP starts talking, there's some things going on there. Mom she's indicating that she's certain that he walked out of the house, and I want to go back to something that's key there, and the context of Sebastian missing. She said within 3 minutes, I was on the phone with my husband. So she brings that up immediately within 3. Now, here's the thing. He's out of town, so he can't help. But she says within 3 minutes, I'm on the phone with him. She has just brought him into this via a phone call. It's very important. Their conversation on the phone is very important. And I'm going to dovetail back to something that I didn't comment on in the segment just before this. But if you remember, she said when she was describing the night, and Sebastian went to bed and said, I love you, Mom. And then she says, a little while later, I wound up going to bed. Well, what that is a little while later means there's time that has spanned, that she's not going to tell us what she did in that span of time. And she is not saying how long it was, but she just says a little while later, that's going to suffice for her. We don't know how much time spanned, but we now know on the back end that she was on the phone with her with CP for 3 hours, I believe it was, before she went to bed. And now she's bringing in another, she's on the phone with him again. This phone conversation with him is going to be really key in whatever happened to Sebastian.
Oh, bingo. Haven't we been saying this all along? That phone call? That 3-hour phone call? That morning phone call? Those are key.
Well, she qualifies it too, Steve, right? She goes, I can't find him. Well, what does that mean? I mean,
did you find it strange the way that she said that?
Yeah, it was like she paused, she's thinking, you can see her gears going.
Yeah.
And let's play that back one more time for the audience and get a better context, even for both of us too. Let me go back here just for a second. And by the way, everybody, I hope you can hear this. I've got it turned up full volume. So if you can't hear it real well, turn up on your side over there, the computer on your side, just in case. I certainly want everybody to hear what's being said here.
Are you shower?
I took a second and walked through the house looking for him in case he'd gotten up and was trying to get breakfast or something, because he did that sometimes. About 3 minutes in, give or take, I was on the phone with my husband. I said, I can't find him.
Yeah, I mean, that was just out of thin air. You know, within 3 minutes, I can't find him.
Yeah.
But it's almost a contextual where, you know, you're trying to put it into this anomaly of conversation where, you know, I've been looking for him and I can't find him.
She's hoping it'll get accepted, that it's going to be accepted. But this has so many ties to Summer Wells, because this is so interesting. It's very similar to when Chris, you were at the house and Mom is walking you through the house, and you're down in the dungeon basement, and Mom walked you out the door where she's saying that she thinks that Summer was taken out of that door, that downstairs door, and she came out that door. And I use this clip for my training in the classes that I teach. But Mom comes out and she says, I came out here and I said Summer, and the context is incongruent with Summer being missing. If she really knew that Summer was missing, she would come out that door and she would yell Summer. I expect the same thing here from this mother, Katie. I expect Katie to be saying, Chris, I can't find him. I can't find him anywhere. And I want to hear this, the frantic, the emotion of her being just out of her mind, frantic of that she can't find Sebastian. But that's not coming out of her brain. It's good. Why? Because it's not there. And what is coming out is her perception of reality. It's what she actually perceived and the way that she perceived it. And it's like, I can't find him. It's like, it's time. It's time for the next step in this, is what I, in my head, I'm hearing, having listened to so many of these. And so it's not congruent with what a de facto innocent biological mother, what should be going through her brain, and how she should be feeling, and how she would portray that as what happened.
Love it. Here we go.
He said, what do you mean you can't find him? I said, he's not in the house.
What's your thought on the breathing here?
My thought is that it's the same. It's just a continuation of the rocking. It's also a portrayal. This whole thing, I'm kind of jumping ahead maybe a little bit, but as I watched this interview, I made a note at the end of making all my notes, and I made a note at the end that throughout the interview, I saw mom and CP, stepdad, spending more of their time and emotion or energy portraying themselves as victims rather than concern over the actual victim, who is their 15-year-old autistic son. And I think that is part of this breathing thing that I'm seeing here, is that is it's a portrayal of the emotion, how difficult it is. But I think that it's also combined with nervousness. She's obviously nervous about this. I would be, but what I want to hear is if it's actually, if she's feeling nervous or stressed about her son being gone, I should be hearing, all of us should be hearing the words that correspond to that. We're not hearing that. And so it has to be something else. And so I go to, well, what else would cause that? Well, with everything else that I'm hearing in the language, I'm thinking, this is a nervousness because she is in self-preservation mode. She is trying to not say things that she shouldn't, that might give away what she actually knows. It's just self-preservation. And so she's trying to self-soothe to keep things under control. I believe that it is nervousness, but it's not the nervousness that we should be seeing. It's self-preservation.
Yeah, that's interesting. Mally, again, she came up with another good one. It's Lamaze breathing, right? Pant, pant, blow.
There you go.
So interesting. All right.
And so at that point, is that when you call 911, or what's going through your mind?
While we were on the phone, and I was like, is he on the other side of the bed?
Did he said while we were on the phone, I was there? I'm going to back that up for a second.
Back that up. Yeah.
Did I mishear that? Yeah.
Or what's going through your mind?
While we were on the phone, and I was like, is he on the other?
What was that?
That's a really good question.
Did you hear that?
Did he just say I was there? I haven't never caught that part. Let's listen again.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear that? Maybe I'm hearing something that I want to hear, maybe, but everybody else weigh in. Just listen to tell me what you hear.
When you call 911, or what's going through your mind?
While we were on the phone, and I was like, is he on the other side of the bed? The normal places he may be. And
I can't make that one out for sure.
Can't make it out. Yeah. So, yeah.
He wasn't. So I was like, okay, well, hold on a minute. And immediately after that, we called the sheriff's department.
See, immediately after that, and now he joins the conversation, meaning he joins the event.
Right. Yeah. That we is very strong, just like you said.
Yeah, TJ, he caught himself and he mumbled through it. Wowza.
He's in it. But interesting that he only puts himself in it after Sebastian is missing. Before that, she was in it. He kind of left her on her own, and now he's in it. And he said after that, we immediately called 911. And that word immediately is not necessary to say. Nobody would have thought to ask. We typically don't think to ask, did you immediately call? Because this is a missing 15-year-old autistic kid who, I mean, there's real reasons to be concerned that he's missing. Nobody would have thought to ask, did you immediately call? But he put that in there. And Chris, it's an emphasis on, look, we did exactly what we're supposed to do. We're following the rules. We're doing what we're supposed to do. And I don't like it, actually. For me, that unnecessary, the use of that unnecessary word is a convincer. It's a convincing statement in and of itself that they did what they were supposed to do. And who portrays themselves as good people that are doing what they're supposed to do? Typically, it's people that have done something that they shouldn't be doing. Because the people that are de facto innocent and the actual good people don't have a need to rehab themselves, to bolster themselves, to make themselves appear better. They don't use a lot of unnecessary words like that. So that in and of itself, I know it's one little word, but added to everything else, it's I'm stacking things here, and it's just one more thing in the stack.
So yeah, I mean, this is in the 3 minute, within 3 minutes, this is part of that 3 minute call. Within 3 minutes, okay, minute 4 starts, and this is the conversation. And this is how he's describing that, because he takes over from her description of that 3 minute call.
He does. Hey, one more thing.
Yep.
Sorry about that, but
No,
I wanted to be sure. One thing that struck me about this was Mom says within 3 minutes, well, she said, yeah, I took a second. Now she mimicked what the interviewer said to her. Did you take a second? Or I don't remember exactly what the interview said, but she goes, yeah, I took a second, and I looked around, and then I don't remember her exact words, but within 3 minutes she's on the phone with CP. Well, CP's not there, and so what would we expect Mom to be doing at that point? Would we expect her to call him? How is he going to help? What would you be doing? You'd be on the phone with who? His friends, his biological dad. Is he over at your house? Run into the neighbors. Did Sebastian come over here? Looking outside. Is he outside for whatever reason? Did he go to the garage? All these other things. I can think of like a laundry list of things that I would think Mom would be doing, and places she would be going, and people she would be calling to check. Not CP, who's out of town. Why does she call him? That makes this even more significant. She pulled him into this with that mentioning of a phone call, and now he takes over, and it's like, we did this, we did that. They are united in this. But it's not what I would have expected Mom to do. I would expect to hear that I was frantic out of my mind, and I did all these things to find Sebastian. And when I realized, hey, he's nowhere to be found, I wouldn't be calling CP. I'd be calling the police. Can you get me some help here to find my son? And I know, Chris, if something happened to, one of our grandkids or kids when we were younger, I know my wife would be doing she'd expect me to be doing things, but she would be taking all these measures herself, and then she would be on the phone calling 911. My child is gone. I could be standing right there, and she would still say, my child, my daughter, my son, whatever is missing.
Isn't that something? Even they see the difference. They see how Chris runs the narrative, how Chris is in control of the whole story, in my opinion, and obviously in theirs. And Miss Kathy, from what we're hearing, I don't know that it's been confirmed, but one of Chris's co-workers did say he was not at work Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And it's being alleged that he was with them out to eat that night. So that changes everything, if that's the case.
missing, and she would take ownership of it. And it, just assuming I'm there, but you see what I'm saying? Biological mother, there's a real strength there, and I'm just not getting that sense from her.
Yeah, and you know what else, to dovetail on your thought there? I hate to say this, but it sounds almost like an overlay of what Candace regurgitated. You know, that immediately I called Don.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in this, you know, Summer was gone. I called Don. Well, the day I heard that was like a huge red flag for me. It was like, well, wait a minute, your husband's out of town, Don. He happens to be out of town in this conversation that we're having here, right?
Yeah.
It just happens to be that both men are out of town the day their children go missing. And in this case, stepson. And yet the stories are extremely similar. The environment's different, but they're very similar. And in this situation where, you know, he starts carrying the conversation here, he takes it away from her for a second, and then he interjects himself into the narrative of that conversation where, yeah, you know, here, we look there, etc. And I would love to get this tape enhanced to see if he did, you know, put himself into that search mode with her. But most parents, to your point, mothers specifically, they're going to pick up the phone, call 911. My son's missing.
Yeah.
You know, I need your help. My son's missing. You know, okay, well, hang on for a minute. No, hang on. I got to call my husband. Just a second. No, stay on the line, ma'am. Stay on the line. Okay, we have you know, people are en route. I'm going to back this up one more time. There's the log breathing.
When you call 911, or what's going through your mind?
While we were on the phone, and I was like, is he on the other side of the bed?
See, now when you listen to it again, it sounded like as I was there. Was that I was there on the phone? Was you know, is he present? I don't know. I'm just thinking outside the box here.
He may be in the house, you know, and he wasn't. So I was like, okay, well, hold on a minute. And immediately after that, we called the sheriff's department and made the report.
I ran all over the house, outside, inside.
You know, he does forget to add that the sheriff's department doesn't start taking calls till after 8 o'clock. And this happens to be at 6:30 in the morning. He should have just told the truth and said, I called Bobby or I called Carter. Of course, that's my opinion.
Called the sheriff's department and made the report.
I looked in every closet.
Within minutes, they were here. They responded within minutes, and here we go.
So you said you were on the phone.
Here we go.
Talk
This
about connect.
This dovetails back into what she said. She called CP and she goes, he's nowhere to be found. Like, what did I say before? That, like, what? Here we go. We're going to the next step, and that's kind of what he just alluded to. Like, oh, here we go. It's this the next step, and now they go into all this detail about how many cops were there, and they were all the way down the street. But yet, where was that detail when it came to what she did to find Sebastian? I mean, she did have this little second thought, you know, like, oh, by the way, I did do all these things, but it wasn't in the beginning. It took a bit for her for that to come out of her brain. And we certainly didn't have it when she was describing the day and the evening, all the different things, experiential memory, your last moments with your son, the last day. Those things become very dear to you. And if it's the last day, you know, that something happened to them, they disappeared, you remember those last moments more so than the normal day. And so I'm not hearing it. It's opposite.
Yeah, there's a disconnect here. There's a disconnect.
That's it.
I mean, just, and you know, my circumstance. I mean, when Karen and I lost our son, I was standing at the teacups with our niece in Disneyland when that phone rang and we got the message that our son had passed from, you know, the police in an accident. And I can tell you that is ingrained here and here.
Haven't I told y'all that? It's ingrained in you. I can go back in every tiny detail of that last day. I can tell you every bit of it. It has become part of every inch of my body. And here's Katie being very spotty on things. I honestly believe she doesn't want to recall.
I can tell you exactly what emotions came over me and how they flooded my mind, my body. I'm not seeing this. You know, this little boy, 15-year-old autistic son, and they've had 8 days now to process this. 8 days. And, you know, to your point, Steve, I'm not seeing that. It's like, you know, oh, here we go. Let's move. You know, we got things to move. And he's a former military guy. He's a former Navy guy. So for him, maybe it's like, you know, saddle up. You know, let's move. We got things to do.
Could be. But, you know, Chris, as you're describing, you remembered you were at the teacups when you got that news. And I'll bet that what flooded your mind was your last conversations with your son, the last time you were with him. I bet that was like forefront in your mind.
Yeah. And I didn't believe it because he was just at our house, you know, earlier, and it's gone. You know, to your point. So you're right. I mean, here, I'm not, it's just like this disconnect.
There's a big disconnect here. And it's troubling.
It is troubling for me too.
Called the sheriff's department and made the report.
I ran all over the house, outside, inside. I looked in every closet.
Within minutes, they were here. They responded within minutes, and here we go.
So you said you were on the phone with her, so you were not home?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I was at work. I'm a tower crane operator, and I was working in Memphis at the St. Jude project. So it's, you know.
She feeds him the reporters. I wish those reporters would stop feeding a narrative. Just say, where were you and what happened? And let it run. That's what cops do. I mean, a good interviewer anyway.
Yeah.
Because he dovetailed right into that conversation.
Yeah.
They need to.
Yeah, he sure did. And that happens way too often. I wish more people would take training like my classes or similar, and learn to ask the right questions that will elicit the information that's very usable.
I have an earpiece in that talks to my phone. I have another earpiece in that does the radios. So when she was talking to me, I was like, what? I was confused. We talked about where he could possibly be, and then we went from there and led to calling the cops, and here we are now.
Within minutes. There.
He said it again.
He did. Which, yeah, it elevates the sensitivity to that too. That, to me, that kind of solidified in my mind that is, in his head, it is more of like, well, on to the next step. This is what we talked about. This is going to happen. And
Chapter 2, here we go.
And now they're into the next phase.
Yes, ma'am.
It was rapid fire. They had cars. They had cars from here down to the
main
road, as far as I could tell.
So what's going through both of your minds? I mean, are we panicking? Is it this, oh, I think he's
See, she's given him a multiple choice. And ladies and gentlemen, take Steve's class, because that's not how you interview. Okay? This is a news interview, but this is not a law enforcement interview. So I would be real curious what they told law enforcement 8 days earlier. I guarantee you they're not going to line up.
For sure.
Probably at a neighbor's house, or what are you thinking?
My son doesn't run. He's not a runner. He's never run away before. I don't know why. I don't know why he walked out that door.
I mean, he's a good kid.
Okay. This is a thought that just hit me, guys. The way she says, I don't know why he went out that door. I wonder if Chris was leaving and Sebastian went to charge him, went out that door and went after him. If Sebastian had had enough, went out that door and followed after Chris. And that's when things got haywire. Isn't that something? That just hit me the way she said that. Because we know he's not a runaway. That's what they reported him as. But there is nothing at all to suggest that that child ran away. But the way she acted when she said, I don't know why he went out that door. I wonder if he chased Chris out the door.
Hold up, Chris. Let's talk about that just for a second. I know we got a lot to cover here, but she asked him the reporter asked specifically something to the effect of, what's going through your mind? Are you thinking he's at a neighbor's house? I mean, she offered that possibility to the parents. And what did mom go to? She went to him being a runner. Well, she said, my son's not a runner, but I'm wondering why, out of all the possibilities, are you going to, he's not a runner? And then she says, he's never run away before. It tells me in her mind, there's no other possibility other than that he ran away. And it's, again, very similar to Summer Wells. They had their narrative. They had this, Summer Wells' parents knew what happened, that somebody came up on their property and took her. And Chris, you and I, from all our investigations, we know that in a case like this, you don't know. You don't know if did Sebastian walk out? Did his dad come and get him? Was he lured out by someone else? Did possibly did he get internet access that we didn't know about? Did he, a friend? Did he go to a friend from school? There's so many possibilities, but yet they're not getting off that. And so she says, I don't know why he walked out that door. So she's telling us that's the only possibility, that he walked out that door. There's nothing else on the table. That's the only possibility. And it's just, again, incongruent. It shouldn't be that way. It's not what we expect.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. DLR, right? Does not look right.
Right.
Or sound right. So far.
He's not a mischievous child by any means. But there's answers to questions that have no answers, or questions with no answers right now that we are searching for desperately. And We just
Is
don't.
there anything that happened that day that you think back and there might have been a reason he was possibly upset or something outside that could have enticed him to go outside? Was there anything that came to mind?
We've been combing over that day and even the weeks before he left, and I hadn't been able to figure it out. That morning he was laughing, he was joking. Everyone we were around that day agreed that he seemed like he was in a good mood, he was behaving. It'd make more sense if we'd been fighting.
Or you'd been in trouble, but he hadn't been in trouble.
Okay, right there. So, interesting that mom says he was in a good mood. He was behaving. Again, a subtle reference to the times that he's not behaving. And I get it. You know, he's a 15-year-old boy and autistic, and I'm sure it's a handful. But when they're missing, it's very common for the negative things to not be at the forefront. They take a back seat to all the good things about the child. And so here she brought it to the forefront, but she said something to the effect of, I don't remember the exact words, but even all the people, all that we know or whatever, agreed that he was in a good mood.
Let's go back for a second and I'll replay it for you.
Okay.
So we can all hear it one more time. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Before he left, and I hadn't been able to figure it out. That morning he was laughing, he was joking. Everyone we were around that day agreed that he seemed like he was in a good mood, he was behaving. It'd make more sense if we'd been fighting.
Or you'd been in trouble, but he hadn't been in trouble.
Yeah. So interesting that even all the people that we'd been around agreed that he'd been in a good mood. It's that agreed is it caught me by surprise, actually. That means you've been talking to them, and you, was he or wasn't he? Why does there have to be an agreement that he was in a good mood? To me, this is more of a narrative building type of situation, building the narrative that he was in a good mood, that he was happy. That's the story they're trying to sell. The soggy bread, Chris, that they're trying to sell is that he was in such a good mood that he wouldn't leave on his own. He wouldn't walk out that door. He's not a runner. You should believe me, because even everyone that we were around agreed. So if you didn't believe me before, you should agree now, because everyone else agrees that he was in a good mood. You see how they're building that narrative, and she's selling it. That's what that is there. And then you have Dad or CP saying, well, Mom said it'd make more sense if we'd been fighting, meaning she brought it up. I wonder why did she bring that up? And then CP saying, or if he'd been in trouble, but he hadn't even been in trouble. And it's just a subtle reference to, hey, Sebastian gets in, we fight sometimes. He fights, or he gets in trouble, and I know it's minor, but it's troubling for me in the context that he's missing. And so I know that when the kids are missing like this, those negative things take a back seat, and what comes to the forefront is all the good things about them. And you're right. This like you said, it's a disconnect, and it's troubling again. Disconnect.
Yeah, and in their mind, they're projecting into his mind that if he gets into trouble here, well, then we could understand him being gone.
Good. Yeah, I agree.
You know, because what they're doing, right? I mean, they're transferring everything into Sebastian's mind of, you know, but then they project him as, well, he doesn't get in trouble. But if he did get in trouble, we would understand him being gone here.
You know, Chris, now that you say that, I've been kind of getting the sense here that Sebastian may have got in trouble that night, may have not liked what was going on. There may have been some kind of argument or fight. It came out of their brain. They introduced it. And so that may have been the catalyst for Sebastian. If he walked out that door on his own, or they put him out the door, then it's a form of justification. And those that have guilty knowledge have to have more times than not, need to justify it. And
Their words, not ours, right? That's all we have to go by is their words. And they're the ones that make it sound like they're trying to justify everything. Therefore, our opinion is formed.
And this subtle implication or inference that Sebastian got in trouble, would fight, would misbehave, those little inferences now are becoming even stronger to me, that there's a good chance that night that she portrayed, that day she portrayed as the normal, that he was behaving. I told her I loved you, told my mom, he told me that I love you, Mom. I'm thinking that it was probably, I mean, I'm not 100% there, Chris, but I'm pretty close, that it was probably just the opposite that night. And there was probably an argument and something that didn't go well. So I still don't know. Did Sebastian walk out on his own? Was he put out? Was he taken out? You know, I don't know. I can't say that, but I'm not liking what I'm hearing here.
So, the $1 million question, why did he go? And the other $1 million question is how?
What about social media?
Hold on.
I'm glad
I think
I stopped it too. Go ahead.
that should have been your tagline for this show, the $1 million question. As I heard that, I thought, well, the $1 million question is, where is he? Where is he? But Dad's $1 million question, or CP's $1 million questions are justification questions. Well, why? Why did he go? And how did he go? In his mind, there's no question of where is he? That really is the $1 million question, but not to him. It's how can we justify this? That's the $1 million question.
Yeah, and the shrug, it's like, yeah,
Yeah, done.
yeah, okay. And here we are.
Chapter 3.
After the 3-minute call.
Right.
You know, here we are. Now they're 8 days into, well, that's the big question. You know, here we go.
I don't like it.
Yeah, same.
Is there anything that, anyone who could have contacted? I understand he was somewhat of a gamer, or what was he? There was a video game he loved, right?
Minecraft. He loves Minecraft. The game that he has is not online. He has the Switch.
We don't, because of how social media can be, he doesn't have accessibility to communicate with folks
On the internet.
I mean, we have a firm belief that we just don't feel that right now that he's capable of having that kind of responsibility. So, I mean, his phone is locked down, his computers, his gaming. He doesn't have a gamer tag. He doesn't have online capabilities with games. I mean,
We've combed every electronic.
I mean, we've cooperated with all the authorities as far as anything they've asked us to provide, we've provided.
That's an interesting statement. We've cooperated with all the authorities as far as everything they've asked. Well, okay.
I was going to have you stop it there too. I'm glad you stopped, because he qualified it, just like as far as, but Did that even need to be stated that we've cooperated with authorities? This is your child. Why? We all assume that you're cooperating. That only begs the question, what are you hiding? Why even introduce the possibility of a lack of cooperation? Why they need to say that? It's not necessary to say. We just expect you're cooperating. Of course you're cooperating. No one would have thought to ask, and now we're asking. Wait a minute, it's a head scratcher. Is there a possibility you're not fully cooperating? And now you break it down even farther. Like, well, you just qualified your cooperation as far as. So it begs the question: are you hiding something?
Well,
Is Christopher hiding something? That would be my number one question.
and that's to dovetail into your thought. It's interesting. They go from what the likes are of the Sebastian, he likes to play Twitch, to we're cooperating with the authorities. I mean, it's almost like this, he jumped into a different train track immediately to tell everybody, well, we've let them have access to all of the information in their, our computers and his computer, et cetera, et cetera. But what's interesting is the authorities have said that nobody's been cleared. And that unfortunately includes them. And they said that at the 2-month mark. So maybe that's where the concept of as far as has a little more weight and a little more power. Maybe there's other things that there hasn't been a lot of help with. I don't know. I mean, I'm just right. I mean, you've been in this situation 100 times where we've talked to folks that have said A, B, C, and D, and it's E, F, and G, and you go, well,
Right.
I'm not buying that yet.
This is actually the fact that he said that is a statement to portray himself in a good light. Why does he need to portray himself in a good light in this situation? Again, that is unexpected, and it's something that we often see in situations where we hear that from people that have some guilty knowledge in the situation. He shouldn't be having to portray himself in a good light. Mom shouldn't have to be portraying herself as a good mom. You see, we're seeing a pattern here, and I think it's going to continue on.
$100 says you clip this and into your classes.
I'm not going to take that bet because.
All right, hang on. Here we go.
Still just don't have any answers.
Did he have any friends that could have possibly contacted him in some way on his phone?
All his friends at school have been questioned to my knowledge, and none of them knew anything.
So this big question mark. He's vanished.
Yes, ma'am.
No one can figure out where or why. All right. So let's talk about the relationship involved, because the biological father is very much involved in Sebastian's life as well.
Yes, ma'am.
He
Very
is.
much.
Right. And how would you describe that relationship, the two of them and the four of you?
It's relatively good. I mean, we talk regularly. He talks to his son on a regular basis, sees him on a regular basis. He's involved in school and therapy, and I mean, he didn't have any extracurricular activities, but I can tell you now, if he did, his dad would be in the front row.
In two different households, and the communication between the three of us is great. I mean, yes, we're just like every parent. We all have our disagreements, but in the end, we come together as a team and we work and we come up with solutions that as we best see fit. I mean, I'm almost.
Okay, we've all heard how Christopher works as a team when it comes to Seth. We've all heard how when Seth just wanted to clear up a rumor that was going around and actually had to do with Chris's family, we saw how well his anger worked with Seth. It's a whole different picture than what he's explaining right here.
Most in contact with him almost daily.
Almost.
Is he talking about biological dad or
Yeah.
Sebastian, the
He's
biological
talking
dad?
about the father.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting description there, because he's letting her talk, which is good, right? Because you know, her ex, yet you know, he kind of colors in, you know, number 5 on the painting, you know, with blue.
Right.
Everything's great, you know, use, you know, paint number 5. Everything's perfect. But, you know, later on, it just unravels. I mean, the two are ready to strangle one another.
Well, and again, this is a continuation of him portraying himself as a good guy. I communicate with him almost daily. It's more of that portrayal, and you know, and I get it. I'm going to give him a break, you know, because I want to hear about a good relationship, but it needs to still be contextual, and still I want to hear more things, but most of what I'm hearing is CP kind of like rehabbing himself, if you will, for whatever reason. Maybe he's lambasted a little bit in the media up to this point. I don't know, but he has a need to portray himself as a good guy, which is, again, troubling. You shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah, the whole clarity of focus, to your point, should be on Sebastian. I mean, what the heck is going on here? There's not this, you know, 8 days later, you know, it's almost as if it's like, you know, okay. I mean, 8 days later, and, you know, and I've, in our situation, and I only speak from personal experience of, I can't believe this. This can't be happening.
Right.
It's like this fog of life, you know, and here it's like, yeah, you know, all of his friends have been interviewed, nothing. We turned over, you know, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I love the soggy bread. I'm not buying any soggy bread right now.
All right.
I think we have a soggy bread emoji too, everybody.
Let's talk about Sebastian.
And she keeps feeding them a narrative.
Yeah.
The reporter.
I don't know if she's doing it because she's sensing that she's not getting the right information, or if she's doing it to try to save the interview. You know, I don't know. I would love to talk to her about that, but she's definitely feeding them, and she's adding a level of contamination to their answers. But yet, even with that contamination, we're still getting some great information as far as finding out what's going on inside their brain, what's up there. But yeah, in a good interviewer should not be feeding something that law enforcement should never do. I get it a little bit more when it's media and they have to keep things going, make the show, you know, the interview a little sexy, if you will, appealing. And so she's trying to save it, I think. But I get the sense that she's not hearing what she wants to hear from parents of an autistic child that's missing.
So Ava says that she lives in the neighborhood. I don't have a confirmation on that, but I believe you, Ava, if that's what you say. That would be also interesting. But here's the good news is they were interviewed by the police long before the reporter. So hopefully they're taking notes.
Yeah.
Unless it's Bobby or Carter. Let's not forget that part.
For sure.
About Sebastian. would you describe him?
Sweet, stubborn. He loves to help. He loves running, and he loves to play his games and his fidgets and Uno. Lord, that's one of his favorite games right now. Favorite color is green.
Does he love music?
Oh, God, he loves.
Guys, if y'all asked me to describe my son, there would have no pause whatsoever. I wouldn't have to sit there and think about it. I could tell y'all every tiny little thing from the day he was born until the day he left us about who he was. Why is it so hard for them to come up with something?
Loves music.
An eclectic taste.
An
eclectic. I mean, from, as everybody knows, Eye of the Tiger to Eddie Vedder.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we got Pearl Jam on one hand. We've got Survivor on the other over here. We've got Taylor Swift. And
He's got a big crush on her. I mean, country, rock.
no
Classic.
hip hop. We don't allow the hip hop.
Well, he doesn't really get
I say
into it
rap and
anyways.
things.
You mentioned he loved running. So did he love the outdoors at all? I mean, would something outside that was somewhat outdoorsy be enticing to him or pull him outdoors?
He loves, like, when we were in California and the school had this lap thing to gain money. It was a fundraiser. And every year he was, I did this many laps. I mean, I've got t-shirts where they would write on his back. Every time the kids went around, they'd mark a mark on the back and they'd keep running. And he just had marks all the way across his back. He likes playgrounds. He hates being dirty. He don't like being dirty.
Yeah, he's not your tomboy style child where he goes outside and plays in the mud.
He loves animals, but he's terrified of bugs.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, even a fly, and he's like, oh!
That's all too, because he's highly functioning. I know you all have described him as having a form of autism.
He does.
But just describe that to our viewers too, as far as his way of thinking of things and maybe how determined he was about certain things or his mindset.
He's got a stubborn mindset. If he believes it's this,
he gets on a one-man track and he is just on it, and he is all about it.
but I mean, he's very smart. He can play chess. He can beat adults in chess.
Wow.
So
he loves playing games.
What about navigation? Like, did he have a sense of direction? Do you think he could have possibly even hitched a ride or gotten a ride on a bus or some sort of transportation?
that is a speculation that we don't have an answer for. Just directionally, he knows he could guide you from our house to his dad's house.
Yeah.
He could get from like this house, I think he can make it up to Culver's ice cream.
He can go to Culver's.
Oh, boy loves
He
a
knows
malt.
where Culver's is because Culver's has malt. He loves malt, extra malt. Every time, extra malt.
Now, how far away does his dad live?
Clarksville. His dad lives up by Clarksville.
So he could guide someone all the way to Clarksville.
Mhm.
Oh, wow. Okay. So a pretty keen sense of direction, at least with certain things.
Familiar routes.
Yes.
Familiar routes.
Familiar
I mean,
routes.
if I took him another route going
He
this way,
takes
he would
it.
not know it.
He goes up there so often that he knows how to get to his daddy's. We know that.
His dad works with him as far as, oh, we're going this way, we're going that way, and keeps the same thing, and it works out. So
Let's talk too, because earlier, Chris, you and I were talking, and you were saying that there are a lot of people who are harassing both of you. What, if any of that, do you want to address? What do you want to say to any of these people?
Just that you don't know And I don't wish you to ever know.
I would say it like this. Everybody has an opinion, you know, and it's perfectly okay to have that opinion, but you're not in this situation. You don't quite understand. I wish people would step back, take a different wide open view, and not assume what they know. It's just better to stick to the facts. If they have questions, all they have to do is ask.
And I pray genuinely that no one ever goes through this.
Hey, Chris, that's, I don't know, the fourth or fifth time I think that she said, you know, something effective. I hope or pray that nobody ever has to go through this. And again, we've kind of talked about this before, but it is focused on herself and not Sebastian and what he's going through. So it's just, that's kind of like, because she keeps repeating it, it's, to me, that is what she has in her head is what is the soggy bread that people are going to buy, the reporter's going to buy. It's going to sell her emotion. And so she keeps repeating it, but it's void of what Sebastian is experiencing. I still haven't heard that. I've heard some things that that he liked, and his music and all the things that he likes, but not what they're feeling about him at this current time and what he's experiencing at this current time. I still haven't heard any of that. And that's exactly what we should be hearing from, de facto innocent parents.
Well, and I agree with you 1,000%, because what they're doing is they're buying empathy from the story.
Yeah.
To the community. It's like, how many times have we had that guy walk in, with a buddy and say, Hank, wait here, I'm going to go talk to the detectives. And then in the middle of the interview, Hank says, or the interviewee turns and says, well, if you don't believe me, go ask Hank. He's in the living room. And so what he's doing, and just my opinion at this point, she's buying empathy to everybody watching this story to say, you see, there's nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Move along. Everything is cool. But to your point, what she's not doing is, my son left the house without his shoes. He's on the scale, the spectrum. He has autism. I'm just afraid. I'm scared what he may be experiencing. I don't know how to deal with this, and that is the emotion that you get when it's more in line with, the car on the right side of the road and there's no line for the collision. For sure.
Good way to put it. Again, and once again, very similar to what we heard in the Summer Wells case.
Almost verbatim. It's kind of scary, to be honest with you. I know this is going to sound crazy, and I'm sure the trolls will take it. I'm wondering if they watched some of that.
I was thinking that earlier. I was wondering that same thing. I just didn't say it, but I.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me fill y'all in. Chris and Steve, Mr. Chris, followed the Summer Wells case.
I wanted the same thing. You would think if they watched some of that they would have learned how not to do things. But human nature is a funny thing, in that even people that, well, let's say, I'll mention this once in a while in my classes, that I'm teaching you about detecting deception and other information in the language, and even those that learn how to detect deception, they can't stop it in themselves. So even someone that's trained, they go out and commit a crime, they some kind of infraction or whatever, and then they're questioned about it, because that human nature is so it's so strong in the way the brain works, that the same thing is going to come out of their mouth. They're going to give away all the same clues of deception. They're going to say all the same things that, and those as the people that they've been studying how to detect deception, you can't stop it. It's just the way that the brain works. And so here we go. Even if they have studied it, they can't change it. They can't change the narrative. They don't know how to.
Yeah.
And very few do. And it's very difficult to actually change the story enough to make it believable. They can't do it.
Oh, here's an interesting comment. In their very last YouTube interview, they mentioned summer many times.
Oh,
Well,
no kidding.
wouldn't that be interesting, right?
Wow.
I wonder what the context is. Is it, and they went through it too? Let's see here. Katie elbows Chris when he's talking about bio father. Yeah, interesting.
Huh.
We all love Sebastian. Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's keep moving here.
Let's go.
Just be kind to people. I mean, it's real simple.
There are some people who have been talking, because I know this is part of the harassment. Is there anything you want to address about this child custody situation with the previous?
So I have a current case that is ongoing in another state. We've requested that case to be sealed because there are some individuals who have taken upon themselves to put stuff out there that they don't quite know, which all they have to do is ask, I'll tell you. But because of that, it has nothing to do with the situation. I just people would respect that and then keep an open mind. It's totally different.
If Sebastian is able to watch this, and maybe he's watching this as it airs, and if he is, what do you want to say to Sebastian? What do you want him to hear from you right now?
Oh gosh, that we love you so much.
I look at the way he's looking. Down and to the left.
Wow.
And this comes after the heels of that conversation. It's almost like bleed over stress, on the CVSA.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Where he had just talked about the custody problem from another situation. And now she's going to talk about, that one of the things I think we'll tell the audience, when you do a CVSA, it's computer voice stress analysis. It comes out looking like a block or like a Christmas tree. And on the second question, which would be an honest answer, is your name Chris McDonough? If you're still thinking about the other question that was just stressful, it'll also come out like a block. So we call that bleed over. And I think he's kind of like, I didn't like that question now that it's out there, and she's going to pick up on Sebastian here.
Yeah. Chris, hold on though. There's something very important though.
Yeah, I missed it.
This is biological mom, and reporter just asked, what do you want to say to Sebastian? What do you want him to hear if he watches this? Now, remember when I referred back to what my wife would say if something happened and she would say, my daughter is missing, my granddaughter is missing, my grandson, it would be she would take ownership. Well, listen to what she said. She didn't say to Sebastian, I love you. She included CP. She said, we love you. And what this is it's something that I don't expect to hear from biological mom. I want bio mom to say, honey, I love you, and come back and loving mom. And he's going to come home to loving mom. But she is aligning herself with CP, with her husband. He's the stepdad. And I'm not quite sure why she's doing that, but for whatever reason, she needs to associate herself with him. And it takes me all the way back to the phone call in the morning right away, called my husband. And the night before, when she skipped over time, she goes, and a little while later, I wound up going to bed. Well, in that time, she had a 3-hour phone call with CP. She's on the phone with him a lot during this situation, instead of finding Sebastian. And here again, I don't know exactly why she's aligning with him, other than if what I'm hearing in her language is correct, that she has, there's that disconnect, which indicates, not kind of, but it does indicate some kind of guilty knowledge on her part. She doesn't want to be in this alone. Just like she's grabbing him, like linguistically, psychologically, she's grabbing him like, we're in this together. We love you. She's using that we, and it's a very strong pronoun. She's unifying herself with him at that point in time.
Interesting. I'm going to go back just for a second and play that through. Okay, I missed that completely, but you're spot on this. It's interesting.
Totally different.
Is Sebastian able to watch this? And maybe he's watching this as it airs. And if he is, what do you want to say to Sebastian? What do you want him to hear from you right now?
Oh gosh, that we love you so much and we want you to come home and you're not in trouble.
I guarantee you he is loved. And trust me, the open arms are waiting for him to come home. From every parent to every family members to probably everyone in the community. But there's no malice, that we just want our boy home.
Huh. So somehow we missed the we thing again, but what he just said there, it struck me too, is why does he have to guarantee that he's loved? That's more of that language that's there to convince. It's like, well, of course he's loved. We expect him to be loved. Why do you have to guarantee that he's loved?
Wow. Way to go, Steve. Because, Steve, let us fill you in on a little something. In our opinion, we don't feel like he was loved. Not by CP.
That's just, all that does is it begs the question, is he really not loved? That you now have to go out of your way and exert this energy and the words to convince us that he's loved? To me, it's an indication of something that I would hear from parents that are either abusive or neglectful, or a parent that is abusive or neglectful. It came out of his mouth. So I'm just thinking that, I don't think that he really loves Sebastian. I guarantee that he's loved. For me, it screams out, there's a good chance that he's not loved. And on top of that, everything that came before this, Chris, him portraying himself as the good guy, mom being in self-preservation mode, portraying herself as a good mom. This all is leading towards it's stacking and shaping into the language of parents that are either neglectful or abusive.
Yeah, remember in high school where you'd go, yeah, sure, right? I love that part where this is such a serious question about what do you want if he's listening, and the response is, I love this part. Hang on.
Yes, no sense.
I'm going to go back a little bit more real fast.
Do is ask, I'll tell you. But because of that, it has nothing to do with our son. It has nothing to do with the situation.
The old what was the movie where, so there's a chance then with, what's it saying, Dumb and Dumber?
Oh, right. Yeah.
What are the odds if we can go out? Right? 0. So there's a chance.
I just be full with
Shoulder
your
shrug.
and keep an open mind. It's totally different.
If Sebastian is able to watch this, and maybe he's watching this as it airs, and if he is, what do you want to say to Sebastian? What do you want him to hear from you right now?
Oh gosh, that we love you so much, and we want you to come home, and you're not in trouble.
I guarantee you that
Right
he's
there.
loved. And trust me, the open arms are waiting for him to come home.
Yeah. I miss
From
that.
every parent to every family members to probably everyone in the community. But there's no malice, so we just want our boy.
Well, I mean, why such the qualification, Steve? I mean, love, malice, you're not in trouble. I mean, those are 3 negatives
Yeah.
to something he's asked about a positive. What do you want him to hear? Okay. And she gives 3 negatives. You're not in trouble, you know, et cetera, et cetera. What's your take on that? Is that's what you were saying a couple
That's
of minutes?
exactly what I was saying, and it's more indicative of abuse, abusing Sebastian in some way, and be thinking also in those terms. They brought up, I guess this is the second time now, and I can understand saying, "Hey, honey, you're not in trouble. We just want you home." I get that. But when you have this in the context with all these other things, it begs a different context, and it's more the language of abuse than it is of "we love you and we just want you to come home." It's not that. We're not that. If that was the case, we'd hear it throughout in all their language, and we're not hearing it. What we're hearing is no, all these other things that are coming up, and for me, as I'm hearing the context of this, it's like, wait a minute, did he get in trouble? Did he do something he wasn't supposed to do? And there's some kind of malice, and there's was there some kind of abusive situation that went on? Which I could see that would be why Sebastian might run, why they might know, because in their head, it's like they know he went out that door. Was he? But I don't know that Sebastian would go out that door on his own. So was there some kind of punishment? Was that part of the conversation the night before when she's on the phone with CP for the 3 hours? Because I know already that it's probably was not the normal day. She doesn't remember those. She can't articulate linguistically what happened during that normal day. All those things that you would remember, the last moments, she can't articulate those things. Why? Because she doesn't. They're the things that it's opposite of a loving situation, the opposite of a normal day. Instead, she's trying to convince that it was. And so I'm wondering now, was there some kind of, did CP tell her, hey, do this to quell the situation, make him behave? And, I don't know. It's just pure speculation on my point, on my part at this point. But that certainly could be a reason for Sebastian leaving. There was something abusive going on there. And when I say abusive, I mean, there's different levels of abuse. And for a child with autism, it might only take a minor incident of abuse that makes him think, hey, I'm not staying here. I'm, to be afraid enough that he goes out the door despite. But I don't think in my mind, as I say that, I'm like, no, I don't think he would do that because he's afraid of the dark. He doesn't like being dirty. He's going out without his shoes. He's afraid of bugs. That doesn't make sense. So if he went out the door, and I'm pretty certain it happened at night, not in the morning. It was night, when she's saying he told me he loved me, that's probably the time that he went out that door. Whether she put him out the door to make him learn a lesson or what, I'm not quite sure, but it's shaping up to be in something like that. That's kind of what the language is saying.
Well, I mean, how many times in patrol would you roll up on a call like this? And if it's a runaway, 15-year-old runaway, right? And you get there, and the first thing you hear the parents or the mother say is, we got in a fight last night, and he's gone. I don't know what, did I do something? You know, and you hear this self-loathing guilt and blame that the child left the house, you know. And in this case, you know, that's not what's happening here. She's now reiterating, you know, as a final or a really important statement. She's given the opportunity. What do you want him to hear? And she relays these three negatives. You're, you know, this and that, and you're not in trouble. And it's like, man, I hope TBI, I really hope that she said to TBI in the very beginning, like we just talked about there for a moment, that, you know, hey, at 10 o'clock, I heard a thump. You know, I went to check him at, 6 a.m., yada, yada. And I'm not going to give them any more clues, because they're going to adapt to it after this call here, or this show here this evening. I know
they will. And
isn't that something? Here they are, 3 interviews in, only 3. And they know they're adapting to each interview. The story grows with each interview. That's not normal. It's not something you have to do when you tell the truth.
That's the norm. And also the other thing too is, you mentioned that she heard a thump at 10 p.m. It's interesting because it's very, very common for a guilty mind to incorporate some portion of the crime and to put themselves at the scene, to put themselves on the road, to put themselves they heard that, and it's more times than not, it's something that was spoken or heard, or seen or heard. And this is she heard something. And I can't tell you how many times that a guilty mind has linguistically then put themselves in the moment of the crime by saying, I heard something or I saw something. Yeah. So I think that's what's going on there. That 10 o'clock time frame is, I think, going to be pretty key.
You know, I'm leaning more towards, I'm not going to give an opinion yet, but I'm leaning more towards the mom than the stepdad here for a moment. Not that I'm saying, not that they couldn't have done, I think she could have done something independent of him at this point. And if I was investigating this case, my opinion would be, at this point, I'm going to really focus on mom for a minute here. Mm-hmm. And, maybe he gets the phone call. Maybe he did get a phone call, just kind of like, the other situation. And now they're building up. What's going to be interesting is see the relationship dynamics, because these types of cases like this, unlike Summer's case, and I think you would agree, Steve, a child, of that age, 4 or 5, versus a 15-year-old, because in 3 years, let's push it where Summer's at, and even today, in 3 years, he would be 18. And so that narrative is going to be a lot more difficult to control, because he's going to show up somewhere in the environment, social, whatever. Because once he hits 18, the law says you're an adult. So they only have 3 years to play a game if they're going to play a game.
Yeah.
And they need to be thinking about that. because that's going to determine how much pressure is going to be on the two of them for the next 3 years in terms of their relationship. If they split, I'd go right to Chris and say, let's talk. Let's talk.
Yeah, that would be the best thing for this case, actually. But I agree with you that, and I haven't made any, I don't have a firm opinion on this, but I agree that mom should be looked at, but I can't get away from the history of abuse on CP's part. And if there is abuse going on here, very good chance that mom Katie is being abused in some way, even if it's verbal, mind control, codependent on Chris in some way. I mean, how many cases have we seen where a mom or girlfriend or somebody will do something because the spouse or the significant other is making them do it, or they're afraid of what the spouse will do if they don't do this, or they've been given the ultimatum that I'm going to leave you if Sebastian doesn't leave the relationship, if he doesn't find another home, if he stays here, then I'm gone. And that's not uncommon. And so either way, it needs to be focused on mom here, but reasons why could be because of what she's experiencing in her relationship with CP. Just speculation.
Great point. But I'll let Chris watch, with the girlfriend.
Yeah.
The family goes or I go.
Yeah. Susan Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of cases like that.
Yeah. That's a great point. She's coming up for parole, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Abby. But
That mama's heart, I know it's Patty's too, but I feel like there's always that extra special bond. Can you walk us through what you're thinking right now?
I just want my baby to be okay. I don't know where he's at.
Now, I don't know if I'm seeing this in my mind, but did that reporter sound like she was tearing up, a special bond with mom?
Yeah.
And is that going to be an emotional mirroring, that Katie's going to pick up on here?
Well, it could be. I mean, there's definitely cannot take that off the table, and that certainly is. It kind of depends on Katie's personality. Is she one that tears up easily? Does she, when she feels emotion, does she tear up? I know people that don't tear up to save their life, never. But yet can be very express emotion, but you don't see it in them. So it could be. It kind of just depends on her personality there. But along those lines and what she just said, interesting that why did she choose the word out of all the things that she could have said at that point in time is, I don't know where he is. And she repeated it. I don't know where he is. I have a couple other cases that I often profile in my classes where that same verbiage was used, and one in particular by a fiance, a guy that killed his fiance. She was pregnant with his baby, and he was asked in a press conference, describe your last moments with your fiance, and he paused for a long period of time, and he said, I don't know where she is. Just like, it's like the telltale heart, that old Edgar Allan Poe story, telltale heart. It just, so much guilt that that's just what comes out, and what's just pressing on their mind, that what they do know, and then it comes, I don't know where he is. Anyway, it reminded me of that, and so with everything else that we've seen in this case, I just wonder, does she know? Does she know what happened to him?
Katie, do you know? Do you know, Katie, what happened to Sebastian?
But I feel like there's always that extra special bond. Can you walk us through what you're thinking right now?
I just want my baby to be okay. I don't know where he's at. I don't know where he's at.
Let's talk about the community, because I want you all to know, even my church body, I mean, we're all praying for his safe return.
They're all crying, but Chris looks really bored.
Quickly, what do you all want to say to the community?
Thank you.
With everything from the bottom of our hearts. I would not have imagined how far this has gotten, but there's no way to repay the gratitude, the love that we've felt from the community, the prayers. But thank you
But
from the
don't
bottom of
stop
our hearts.
looking.
Yeah, please.
My son is somewhere.
This ain't over until he's home.
So we have, let's mention, continuing the search itself, because we know thousands of miles have basically been traced and retraced. We've got hundreds, we've got volunteers, we've got law enforcement from within the state, outside of the state. I mean, do you feel like they're doing as much as they can? I mean, you all have been right there in the front seat, seeing everything that's underway.
As far as I know, they're doing everything. Anything and everything has been an option. They have brought in assets and resources from various counties, potentially other states. I mean, I don't know how much more they could do, but we're grateful for everything they have done.
They're amazing, but they still haven't brought my baby back.
They will. They will.
Hey, Chris, I like that. I like what she said, because I was going to stop you earlier and I didn't, when she asked, what do you want to say to the community? And she said, thank you. And he said, and CP said something that was kind of like, we can't ever repay you for what you've done. And a lot kind of like it's over. But I was thinking, the community hasn't found him. There's still more to do. I would be saying to the community, man, just keep looking. Just please keep looking. I appreciate everything, everything you've done. But instead, it's like they're thanking him for their support, not for what they've done to look. It's more of, hey, thanks for supporting us with your love and your prayers. And I get that, but I want to hear more. Hey, keep. Thank you for looking, and just keep it up. And I know as her second thought, she did come out and she say, "Oh, and don't stop looking." But what she did say here, I really liked it. She said she wasn't too keen on the plea. She says they still haven't found my baby. I like that. That's the language I want to hear throughout this whole thing. Is like, why haven't they found him? I like that. And then CP's like, did he shrug again? I'm not quite sure, but he says they will. He's reassuring her. I don't want to be totally negative through this whole thing, because that actually was something I like to hear. So kudos to her.
Okay.
He's out there somewhere. So it's one day at a time, getting through this and bringing him home.
Yeah.
What is the reaction to the fact that somehow his image, he hasn't been captured on any video anywhere?
I know that it was very dark that night. I mean, it gets dark around here at night in general, but so far we haven't found him on any camera footage to prove where he's at.
Oh.
that statement's always bothered me.
Yeah.
To prove where he's at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you have to prove where he's at to the authorities? Because the authorities are asking him. You know how it goes.
Correct.
They're saying, where is he?
That statement reminds me of, again, another example I use in my classes. There's a guy that was stabbed. He was with a couple friends in their apartment. They were doing a lot of dope and drinking and stuff, and a couple of them got in an argument, and one of them was stabbed. And in his statement, he survived, but he went to the hospital and he got a lot of stitches and staples and everything, but he skewed his story. Instead of, he's actually the one that started the fight. And in his story, he left all that out and just wanted me to believe that the guy just got up and stabbed him for no reason. Just started beating on him and stabbed him for no reason. And the case was totally opposite of that. And in his story, he said, he just started beating me down with no regret, and just over and over and over. And he got a knife and he stabbed me. And I had the cuts to prove it and the staples to prove it in my neck. And I was like, why does my victim have to prove anything to me? He shouldn't have to prove anything to me. And it's because he was changing the narrative. He actually was stabbed, but he was deceptive in the way that he was portraying it, leaving out all of his own culpability. And so anytime I hear this from our alleged victim's family to prove where he was, I'm like, I'm just like you. I'm just like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it catches us off guard. Like, why do you have to prove anything? Why does it have to be proof? And I wonder, did she hear something from the investigators regarding proof of life? Is he on camera? Is he on video somewhere? This proof of life, did they ask her for pictures from her cell phone that she might have taken that day of him? Or, I don't know. There's all kinds of possibilities, but I wondered, is she parroting language that she heard from them? Because that would be proof of life, that he was alive earlier, that night, I guess, earlier, she went to find him in the morning, he wasn't there. So you see where I'm going with this.
And it goes into your thought. I mean, first of all, there's not this is 8 days into the investigation. So there's not a whole lot of social media, trolls coming in and saying, you did it. You're the ones, we know you killed him, yada, yada. Now, there is some of that, I'm sure of it. Like every case that happens. But that statement in of itself is not directed at, if it's directed at social media, it goes exactly to your point. They're more concerned with what they're thinking than they are about Sebastian. Okay. Most people will, in a scenario where there's no jeopardy, will say, I could care less what they think. I'm looking for my son. You know where you hear that? You hear it from the biological father.
Mm.
That's what the biological father is, the first one that says, I don't care what they say. Okay? I want to find my son, Sebastian. Okay?
Oh, wait. The biological father is the one that is pushing to find his child? Yes, Chris, that would be very correct.
And, the fact that she says to prove, I think that's directed at law enforcement, and that was kind of a leakage.
Yeah.
I think LE put a little pressure on them saying, look, this isn't lining up. Do you have any video? And by the way, she works for Brinks. So she's a video expert. She installs cameras and that kind of stuff. So of course they're going to press her right up front going, hey, you do this for a living. Do you have any video? Do you have anything other than what you're saying? Is there something? And then, she chooses those words very succinctly. I'm going to go back and play it one more time.
Right on.
I know that it was very dark that night.
How does she know it's dark? She's in bed. He's in bed. She doesn't go check on him till 6 a.m.
Yeah.
It gets dark around here at night in general, but
It gets dark around here at night in general. Okay, it gets dark everywhere.
That's another reason when I heard that, I thought, oh, that just another check mark that this, whatever happened, occurred that night.
Way to go, Chris.
And I would say of that 10 o'clock hour again, that's going to be probably key. That's probably about the time.
The thump.
It was very dark when you had to use those little flashlights to walk across the back of your yard. I could only imagine, in my opinion.
so far we haven't found him on any camera footage to prove where he's at or where he's gone.
So far, we haven't found him on any camera footage to prove where he's at, where he's gone. So it sounds like they're alleging there is camera footage that they reviewed.
Or, well, yeah, that's a good possibility. Yeah, that's good. Or in their mind, they're thinking there's a possibility now that they've thought it, it's been 8 days and they've had time to think about this. In the back of their mind, they might be thinking, I wonder if there's camera footage down that particular street that we drove, or, whatever the case is. But certainly one of those is a really good possibility.
I know that they're looking, and I went asking everybody and anybody.
I know that they're looking. So that means, again, it goes back to that, to prove. That's who she's talking about, the authorities.
Yep.
That has cameras, trail cams, stores.
Did she just look at her backyard? I wonder if that's the direction she just looked.
So that's interesting. 8 days into this, the authorities are going, we're in, your first statement, because we don't know what the first statement is. They went to the news on this one.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be really curious to hear that first statement.
Would love to hear it.
To check, even from before he went missing, just to see if there's anything at all.
I understand there was a request for video, any sort of footage of Sebastian from earlier in the day on Sunday before he disappeared.
That I don't believe we can comment on right now. That is not something that I believe we're privy to at this point.
Christopher is not privy to it.
Law enforcement, that is something I would definitely direct back to them. But I mean, there's all kinds of requests out there. There's thousands of hours of video that they are combing, and we're just hoping they'll find something.
And I know this is so sensitive. What do you say to people?
And those thousands of hours can be narrowed down to about an hour with the technology that's available.
Technology, yeah.
Who inevitably end up pointing their finger back at you. We were talking earlier, and I mean, are you both in the clear?
I can tell you that Mom, myself, and the father have worked very fully and cooperatively with all.
He's not answering the question.
He skirted that question. We expect from both of them that at the same time to be given a absolute answer. Absolutely, that would be the word. Absolutely, we're in the clear. Yeah. Yeah. We had nothing to do with this. Let's just get over this, and we've offered to take polygraphs to clear our names and get on with the investigation to find him and focus on whatever happened to him.
Well,
But she didn't say a thing. And then all he can say is, I can tell you we've cooperated. That's the only thing he can say about that. But that doesn't answer the question.
Well, and 2 months later, in the press release, or if you go to the TBI website, they say, and the sheriff just recently gave an interview, the chief deputy, we've not cleared anyone. So he's asking a question. He's asked that question, have you been cleared? And he gives an answer that says, well, we're cooperating. And then the sheriff 2 months later says, we haven't cleared anybody. But here he's projecting into the public that, hey, there's a possibility. The dad, me, the mom, we've been, we're kind of copacetic here. Let's go back. This is important for the audience to catch this, because this is 8 days. Okay. 8 days. They're having to, quote, prove to the authorities. And he's saying, hey, we're cooperating. And 2 months later, the sheriff comes out and says, we haven't cleared anybody. That's exactly like Don and Candace.
Yeah.
In the Summer Wells case.
Exactly.
The sheriff has come out and said, no. But listen.
And, are you both in the clear?
I can tell you that Mom, myself, and the father have worked very fully and cooperatively with all agencies across the board. We have anything that they've wanted, we have provided. So cooperation is there.
It doesn't answer the question.
You notice how he took himself out of that.
Yeah.
So cooperation is there. That's a passive statement, meaning he's not saying, again, that we're cooperating fully or whatever, but cooperation is there. That's in other words, let me just say these words and let you I'm going to let you mold that into whatever you want to do with that, interpret it. And I always teach, if you interpret, you lose. Listen to what they say. He disconnected himself psychologically from that statement regarding cooperation.
Okay, hang on.
And I know this is so sensitive. What do you say to people who inevitably end up pointing their finger back at you? We were talking earlier, and are you both in the clear?
I can tell you that Mom, myself, and the father have worked very fully and cooperatively with all agencies across the board. We have anything that they've wanted, we have provided. So cooperation is there.
What do you want to say to our viewers? Anybody who's watching, we've got a lot of folks in this.
He didn't answer the question.
Yeah, he skirted it.
He's completely, to your point, completely 100%. It's like, well, it's kind of blue, but it could be blue. It all depends
right.
on the sunlight coming through the window. You make the determination.
Right.
Instead of, this is, of course we're cooperating. Our son's missing. And of course, we will do anything. And the authorities have cleared us. Go ask them. They have verified what I said from day one. I'm not hearing any of that.
No.
And in other counties, just throughout the state as well. What do you want to say to them?
Help spread the word and keep searching, and thank you. And
by the way, the reporter teed that question up.
Yep.
And she said to him, like we talked about, i.e. before they went on air. So they had time to process of how he was going to answer that question. And it was interesting that he took that answer.
Agreed.
Just, if you think you see him, call him in.
Thank all the viewers, everybody that's helped across the board. Everybody has been tremendous.
Call his name.
Yeah.
He'll answer, and if he doesn't answer, he'll look, even if he's not being verbal at the moment, because he can talk. but sometimes he don't talk. Call his name, tell him to stay put.
He could be on the move, so keep checking your properties.
Yes, like the search is never over until he comes home. That is for
He's
sure.
so smart.
But thank you for everything that everybody has done, has volunteered, the continuous efforts. I mean, it's, like I said, I've never seen something to this magnitude before.
Our community is amazing.
We're all praying and hoping and searching for Sebastian's safe return for that day. Thank you both for
Thank
talking
you.
with me.
Well, let's not forget what this is about. Thoughts, Steve? Final thoughts?
You know, I think what we did tonight was unveil a bunch of information that's in their mind, in their brains, that they probably didn't want anyone else to know. But we in essence just open those closed doors in their brain and let that information out. We exposed it. And I saw in one of the comments that they aren't even living in that same house anymore, that they're now in a different state. And Chris, to me, that's kind of if that's true, that's kind of a nail in the coffin. I mean, I shouldn't say nail in the coffin because there's a lot of possibilities here, but why in the world would you move from the house that your autistic son knows, and if he's going to come back, he would come back to that house? I mean, if that was my child, and I'm sure there's a million people out there would say the same thing, like I would never move until he came home. If there's a chance that he's coming home, and by the way, de facto innocent people, parents, they don't give up hope, and especially biological moms, especially they hold on even longer, but they're not going to move. They're not going to move. If there's a chance that he could come home, then they're not going to move. So why did they move? And it tells me that in their mind, they know. It's like CP shrugging his shoulders, like, well, it's over. Okay, we're on to the next phase in this whole thing. And they're going through the steps, the scripted steps, the motions. And that's kind of the final move, if you will, that we're gonna get out of here so that we don't have to suffer the persecution. We don't like it, whatever's going on, whatever the reason was, I'm not quite sure, but I would never move. I would be, like you said, bio dad is like, I don't care what everybody says, I'm here to find my son. Well, that's what I expect from these guys too, is, hey, we're here, we're in it. No matter what, it doesn't matter what everybody's saying. Nothing can make me move here from this home, that Sebastian knows if there's a chance he's going to come walking through that door again. So yeah, I don't like that.
I agree 1,000%. It's just not lining up. And I think we stay at the house. Would you agree? The victim risk continuum, that as investigators, I wouldn't leave that house yet.
Oh, for sure.
And
yeah.
So
I don't know the extent of the law enforcement investigation, how many times the parents have been interviewed or polygraphed or, any of that. But definitely this is one of those situations again where based on this interview tonight that we went over, the focus has to be on, number one, on mom, and number two, CP's involvement. She pulled him into that. She doesn't want to be alone in this. So that for me, as from an investigative standpoint, that's where it lies. That's where the focus needs to be. Like you said, right there in that house, and in that family dynamic right there.
And we'll make a couple of predictions here as this continues to go on. They'll align themselves more with adapting, just like Don and Candace have.
Yeah.
And by the way, I just put into the chat here, if you're interested in taking Steve has a civilian class, go see his company, Truth to Lies, and there's a discount code in there in the chat. You can just copy and paste that to his classes.
Yeah, actually, Chris, that I have two online courses there. One is more of a beginner course, and then what was just less of the next one. The other one is actually the class that I do teach to law enforcement. So I finally made it available to everyone. It's called Getting to the Truth. The discount code for both courses for your viewers for the next month, I'll give them a 25% discount, and the discount code is TIR for either one of those courses. So the Getting to the Truth course, the larger one, that is a 3-day course that I teach to law enforcement, and I've added some extra stuff in there from the Lori Vallow Daybell case.
Okay, guys, we're gonna stop that right there. I hope y'all enjoyed that. This is way different than if they were reading the body language. This is more on an investigative side, and this was more in tune with what we've all seen this whole time. And at the end of the day, Sebastian is missing. And although his parents, his mother and his stepfather, let me get that music turned off. Although they do not want him found, we will not stop. And I think they hit on a lot of things. There were so many red flags. And this was day 8. Day 8. He had only been missing for 8 days. And yet they could see all these red flags. No parent is going to leave a house not knowing where their child is at. Hell, it took me 4 years to move out of my house. And my son's room stayed the same for 4 years until I packed it up in a box and moved it with me. And I know where he is. But they're avoiding so much. And it's so obvious. And it is sickening. Because there's a child that is somewhere. And his mother and his stepfather want to play a game with everyone, even law enforcement, the TV, the news station, the one place that they can get his name, who he is, what is he like, what do we look for, how do we identify him? If we think we might see him, what would his actions be? All the things that a mother would want the whole world to know doesn't come. It's never said. Katie has to stop and think about it way too long. And it just pisses me off. Because those of you that know the heartache of a mother who has lost a child, it makes you angry to watch her. It makes you angry Because there's a possibility she could have her son back, and we can't. I'm Too Honest said it perfect a while ago. Katie, is it hard to breathe? Because it's still hard to breathe for us. And I don't understand why the lies, why the distractions, why trying to keep everybody's mouth shut. If Katie or Chris could come to me and explain that to me, I would very much appreciate it, because I don't get it. The TV station is no longer going to be talking about the lawsuit. They probably think twice now about talking about Sebastian because of the threats that they've received. Why? Why shut down every chance that you have out there to find him? It just doesn't make sense at all. So, with that being said, guys, thank you for all being here. Thank you for listening. Thank y'all for caring. And be careful out on the streets of YouTube. Yeah, Wanda, they know what happened. They're not looking because you don't look for something you know where it is. I just wish they would have the guts to tell the truth for once. Because there are people that care. But y'all be careful out there. Y'all stay the course. Stay strong. Sebastian strong. Because we're not going to stop until we find out where he is. That sweet, sweet little boy deserves to be brought back to his father. And so with that, I'm going to say good night to everybody. Have a great night. I will try to be on tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow will be a better day for me. You never know. But just remember, we're doing this for Sebastian. We're not doing this for them. We're here for Sebastian. Thank you, Miss Kathy. I love you all so much. I appreciate y'all being here. And I'll try to get with y'all tomorrow, okay? Love and hugs, everybody.